the June 3rd, 2020 Board of Agriculture meeting. And we're going to start with just a few reminders here for some of those of us that are new to this. So speaking directly to the board members, a couple things. One, Samantha is going to have the control over the mute. So what she's going to be doing is muting everybody during the presentations and when someone is speaking, so that we're not getting the background noise. If you wish to speak, you can actually manually override that with clicking on that speaker button. But I encourage you, if you're not speaking, to leave yourself muted so we don't get all the background noise. The other thing is that when you get ready to speak, please state your name for the record, as well as if you're making a motion, so that we know who it is. It's something that we should be doing in every meeting, but we've kind of gotten away from. So I apologize for that. But yeah, please state your name before you speak. And then the other thing that I'm going to ask is that during the presentations, if you could make notes of your questions, because what we want to do, this is going to be clunky as it is, but what we want to do is let the presenter finish their time with the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions for the board members at that time. So please don't interrupt the presentation. That's all I have. Samantha?
So when you guys are looking around and what you can see, Chairman Anderson's right. I have the kind of the control to unmute everybody and mute you back. So I'll be monitoring that so we can eliminate the background noise and any feedback. For board members, when you do have those questions, I'm going to be looking out for you visually. So if I can see you and your webcam's on, if you can raise your hand like this, we'll be able to call on you that way. If you are a board member who is joining by phone, if you can press *9, that will alert me that you have a question on my end, and I'll be able to unmute you so you can ask your question or make your comment. If you rather type it in instead of speaking, there is a little chat bubble at the bottom of your screen. And you can chat that, you can type a question or a comment in there for me to see for that. If you're a division administrator or somebody like that who has a question, feel free to use the raise your hand feature on your side. Since I see all of you, if you hover over your name on the participant panel side, there's a little hand that you can hit there and raise your hand. All right, and we're good from there.
All right, well, thank you, Samantha. So we're going to go ahead and start out with a Pledge of Allegiance. So we're going to test this one out. Dr. Spratling, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the pledge. I think Samantha is getting ready to put a flag up for us. There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
justice for all.
justice for all.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Okay, and what we're going to do is go around and do roll call. So I'm going to do this just off of alphabetic order. So Boyd Spratling.
I'm going to unmute everybody so we can get this part going. You're welcome.
And it's here.
Boyd, present.
Okay. Nina? Tim, are you on the line?
Oh, Tim Defrina here, present.
Great, thank you. Charlie Frey?
Here.
Thank you. Woody Worthington?
Present.
Thank you. Oh, no.
Present.
I'm on the
Pin for the computer. 112.
Oh, thank you.
My hat, my socks, shoes, and I'm out of it.
Okay, thanks.
Over there? I see him on the line. We're going to count him present. Jim Snyder.
I'm working on him right now.
Okay. Heather Lackey. Heather, are you on the line?
I know she's here.
Heather's there, Chairman.
Muted.
Okay.
There, now she's unmuted.
Okay. Actually, I see you now, Heather. Gotcha. Varlin Higbee.
Here.
And Director Ott.
I'm here.
Okay. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and just hold there. We won't go through all the staff on this one. We'll get to them as they do their presentations. So we finished roll call. We're going to come to item number 2, which is public comment. And again, Samantha, if you'll kind of run through the process on this one, please.
So if we have anybody on the line for public comment, if you can press *9, that will let me know that you would like to make a comment. I have nothing so far, Paul.
Okay, so I just want to remind everyone that we do have a second public comment period at the end of the meeting as well. We only have one action item other than approval of minutes, and that's under consumer equitability. We usually open up at that point for public comment as well.
I did get one now.
Okay, go ahead and let them on if you could. And just as a reminder, under public comment, that it is a 3-minute time period that you have. And if you would do the same thing, start by stating your name, please.
Okay, call-in user 3. I see that your hand's raised. If you would like to make a comment, please do so.
Hi, this
Hello?
is.
Samantha, are you attempting to get a hold of me? I'm the one that called in. I'm the public comment. I know that was out of order, but I wanted you to know that Dave Kuhn is present.
Oh, okay, great. Then we're good.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dave. Actually, I'm sorry I left you off of my roll call. Thank you. So, and actually, Samantha, if I could, I just want to make sure we still do not have Jim Snyder online. Is that correct?
No, he's here now.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Jim.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close the public comment and move to the minutes. Hopefully, everybody had an opportunity to go through those. And I'm going to ask, did anyone see any errors, any changes that need to be made to the minutes? If not, I would like to entertain a motion.
Yeah, you guys have to unmute yourself. Make motions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Spratling.
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay. We have a motion made by Dr. Spratling. A second.
I'll make a second to approve minutes as is. Woody Worthington for the record.
Okay, thank you, Woody. All those that approve the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 4, Director's Report. Director Ott.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. This is Jennifer Ott for the record. This is going pretty smoothly so far. I think we're doing okay. Thanks everybody for coming. Good morning. A lot has happened since our March board meeting and today. I'm going to cover a few things here on my report, and at the end, I'm happy to take any questions. I do just want to make a note that at the end of this agenda, we do have a separate item for any COVID discussion or also any questions related to any of the Department of Agriculture response to the pandemic. So we do have that separate item if you do want to get into further discussion about that. I know that the division administrators also have individual reports on how their particular divisions are responding to COVID-19, and I know that they'll be happy to answer any questions as well. So going back on Sunday, March 15th is when we first got a call regarding the school closures and the status of rolling back to essential businesses. So many of us met on that Sunday and instituted, as far as our food and nutrition portion goes, instituted basically which was a plan one that had been developed over the preceding few weeks to this announcement. And we're able to, in a very quick manner, respond to the pandemic crisis and the directives as issued by the governor fairly quickly because of the planning of our staff. It was a long week. Not very much sleep happened that week, but I must say that I'm really proud of our staff and how everybody has responded to these pandemic conditions. As you can you've probably heard from the press conferences and communications from the department was able to coordinate over 70 feeding sites through our partners and our school districts in the first 24 hours. And by the end of that first week, we had over 150. Monday morning, within 6 hours, we were able to respond to the governor's directive on essential businesses. And within 6 hours, we were able to, in effect, shut down the department to visitors and establish an essential working framework. Again, because of the efforts of the staff and the leadership of the division administrators and the deputy director, we had that all as part of a plan. And what was really left to do on that Monday, the 16th, was implement it. So we were prepared, and we had a few questions, of course, from industry because we weren't able to anticipate everything. But I think that everybody did a really good job, and we've been able to move forward since then. So I'm going to go through some of these items here on my report, and I'll leave the pandemic response specifics till the end. But I just wanted to set a framework for what we've been responding to and the timeline for what we've been doing since that March 15th Sunday. So we, as part of the COVID-19 response, I personally have been doing a lot of work with coordination, not only with the governor's office, but also with many of our federal representatives, federal delegation, and then also federal representatives with USDA mostly, some with EPA and Department of Treasury, but mostly USDA. Really, working with those connections to make sure that Nevada was getting the response that we needed to be able to do our job. Complete credit to the Food Nutrition Division. We were able to get waivers on congregate feeding sites, meal sites, congregate, basically all sorts of waivers that made it easier for parents and children to get food. And so we were able to do that. And Nevada has always been at the top of the pack as far as getting those waivers through first. And a lot of that has to do with our connections that we've been working on, and also, the preparation that had been done through the Food Nutrition Division. So we've been, Food Nutrition Division has been working with school banks, school districts and food banks, and Homa will go through that with you a little bit. I'll go through some items that are non-COVID related as far as my update. I was reappointed to the Governor's Council on Food Security. That was a council that through this last legislative session had been put into statute. Previously, it was a governor's executive order. And so now that is a statute. And subsequently, I was also appointed chair of that council, much having to do with the work that we've been doing over this past couple of weeks. So I'm very much looking forward to my role on that council and what we can really do to improve some of the food security issues across the state of Nevada and working with other members of the council to do that. Also, as part of some of the activities that we've been doing outside of pandemic, if you remember in the 2019 session, the Department of Agriculture was also issued a letter of intent from the legislature regarding the brands account, the Livestock Inspection account, budget account 4546, to be able to present a business plan to the legislature. That plan was due Monday, and unfortunately, just because of guidelines, we weren't able to include that as part of the board report. But I mean, mostly the deputy director, Administrator Ferris, and Administrator Urity have been working intensely on this program, pulling data, going through the numbers, taking, feedback that I have been collecting for the last year on this account and on this program, on what is working, mostly what is not working, what can we do to fix it. And so putting all of that feedback and all of that data together into one cohesive business plan was a huge effort by staff. And we finally got it done and turned in on Monday. And so I'm looking forward to reporting that and sharing that with you at our next board meeting. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer that. I'm sure there's going to be, but yeah, unfortunately, the deadlines were such that we couldn't share it today. I am happy to announce that we also have a new member of our federal partnership that is working with us now. Mr. Mark Ono is now the new director of the Wildlife Services Agency for the state of Nevada. Administrator Ferris and I have already had a meeting with him. I was very grateful to be included on his interview panel as well. Just a great partnership and a show of collaboration by USDA to do that. And so Mr. Mark Ono is I'm sure, going to be meeting with several of you as he's introduced to Nevada and learns a little bit more about the Nevada industry that he's going to work with. So, keep an eye out for him. Budget continues to march on despite the pandemic. It's just added a different layer of difficulty. We have submitted several BDRs as far as the biennium budget preparations. BDRs is bill draft requests. And part of that is because of our strategic plan that is still in place, that we're still working on, specifically modernize the statutory and regulatory framework. And so there have been many statutes that we've identified that are no longer working for the industry, no longer working for us. And again, based on feedback, not only from staff, but from industry as well, we've made some recommendations for changes to statutes. And those deadlines for departments have just, again, recently, actually that's due today. I apologize, they're all due today. But they will be going through the full legislative process as far as public feedback and things like that. So again, once they are governor's office, we can share those with you as they've become approved as they go further on in the process. We've started our initial budget build. In the initial items of the budget build, like performance measures and any enhancements that we're going to be requesting, enhancements meaning program changes that have a budgetary effect. We're working on those, gathering data. We have received no instructions from the governor's finance office at this point about what the next biennium is going to look like. So thus far, we are building our budget like nothing is happening, and we're moving forward. And then once we receive guidance from GFO, I'm sure we're going to have to take, a red pen to things. So that's what we're working on as far as the biennium budget goes. And, we're continuing to move forward, if not at a little bit of a slower pace than we would like, but, budget still marches on. So I'm going to skip down to some of the pandemic response items. As far as the pandemic items and some of the activities surrounding that, myself, as part of the Department of Agriculture, was assigned a sector under the governor's office strategic response plan. And through me, the Department of Agriculture is working on the entire food security sector, which has mean that not only are we working on the food programs and the agricultural programs that are coming under the department's purview, but I have also personally been working with also the food programs under DHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services. And so assisting the SNAP program, the WIC program, the Aging and Disability programs under DHHS, and working with them to not only coordinate governor's office responses, but also assisting those lines of communication with our federal delegation and the lines of communication through our federal agencies and federal partners. So it used to be there wasn't a day going by that I wasn't on the phone with somebody in Washington, D.C. at least a couple of times a day. That's slowed down a little bit as we've moved away from emergency response. But, that was a part of, the trust that the governor has put into myself and the department as being able to address these food security issues. So we're very proud to work with that and to assist where we can in those issues. Working again with the federal delegation and our federal partners on waivers and many of the federal acts that have come up. Because of our involvement, we've been able to represent Nevada very well. And not only the Families First Act that was passed very quickly by Congress, but also the CARES Act that was passed. And we're working now on the, I forget what it's called now, the Farmers Food Security Act that has been presented in Congress that we're waiting on the language for. We were able to very early on suggest some language that would work for the state to that act, and we're also working very closely with our federal delegation on the next funding package as well. So we do have representation in those issues, and so if there's any feedback or any items that you would like to raise, please feel free to get in touch with me as we move forward to so that I can do a better job in representing our state in this sector. And then, like I had mentioned before, we're still in a stay-at-home work status, and we have been since March 17th, the morning of March 17th, and we're continuing to do so. As there's discussions to reopen state offices as directed by the governor. Yet again, the department has already developed a plan on what that would look like for our department and how we would be handling services going forward, how we would be handling members of the industry and any customers that we might have coming into our buildings to do business. and making sure that not only they're protected, but our staff are protected, and that we are staying safe and responsible and respecting everybody's social distance and health issues. And so we do have a plan in place for when that's coming. I don't have a date on that yet. We're still, working with the governor's office on that kind of plan. So that will be a to be announced. So we're hoping it's coming soon, but we won't know. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that is the end of my report.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and open up to board members. If you have any questions, if you're on the screen, go ahead and just wave your hand, or you can even unmute yourself. And like I said, just make sure that you state your name for the record. No questions for Director Ott? Wow, Jennifer, you're getting off easy. Actually, I do have one question for you. So I did not recall BDRs until the governor's office looks at them. It's something that you're not allowed to share with us, the specifics?
I believe so. I'd have to double check on that.
Yeah, if you could, because I mean, and maybe I forgot to say that Dennis Belcourt is in the meeting as well. Dennis, is that something that that on the legal side, that the process that we go through?
Hi, it's Dennis Belcourt for the record. My recollection is that BDRs are limited distribution until they actually hit the legislature. But so I'll look into that to see when we can when the department can release those. And it may be that I hadn't looked specifically at the question of whether the board, when and whether the board can see them.
Okay, thank you. And that was actually my question. I was just going to ask for the specifics, but wanted to make sure we're not going against protocol here.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions unless someone is ready to unmute themselves with one. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next item. Okay, hearing no questions, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll move into item 5, food and nutrition. And Homa, it's all you now. Homa, you're still muted. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning. Homa Anushapur, Food and Nutrition Division Administrator. As Director Ott mentioned, on March 15, Governor Sisolak temporarily closed all schools, which suspended traditional school nutrition program like National School Lunch and School Breakfast. Immediately, my staff got in contact with the school districts and program operators, and we opened alternative meal distribution sites. And as Director Ott mentioned, in the first 24 hours, we had over 71 sites opened. In anticipation of closure, we also I contacted USDA in advance because we were anticipating the school may close. So by Monday, when we had school closure, we also had the waiver for non-congregate feeding in place, and we were able to go ahead and establish grab and go and mobile distribution. And a week later, all the 6 waivers came down, nationwide waiver came down from USDA that really helped us and gave flexibility to our school districts and program operators. And the most important one was parents being able to come and pick the meal for their children, and they were able to distribute multiple meals for multiple days. So they didn't have to come every day. In terms of our partnership, if you all heard that, and once we heard that Ponderosa milk plant is dumping milk, we contacted them and we got in contact with 3 Squares and worked with Ponderosa, provided milk, and Metagold processed the milk, and the on-the-go marketing corporation trucking delivered it, and we were able to deliver 2,500 gallons of milk per week for 4 weeks through three squares. And currently we have a total of 145 sites that are delivering food, and it's open sites and serving all children age 18 and under in the community for breakfast and lunch, and all the meals have been served in a non-congregate grab and go style, and children do not have to be present. Today, through our community nutrition and child and adult care food program, we from July to February 2020, we have distributed over 4 million meals, adult and senior and children. And for our summer food service program, which right now is serving all the food to school districts and community, originally for this fiscal year, we anticipated that we are going to serve over 648,000 meals. Now Clark County has transferred to summer food, so we are anticipating until the end of June, we are going to serve over 4 million meals to our population in need. Our school nutrition program staff did compliance review, 14 of 17 compliance review. The rest of them are right now suspended due to COVID-19, but we have released the application for National School Lunch, make sure that they can apply for free and reduced lunch kits. All 55 currents have applied, and 5 new charter schools are applying, and 1 new charter school and 2 new residential childcare have expressed interest in applying. We have reimbursed school districts for over 1.3 million for fresh fruit and vegetables that are serving our elementary schools. And year to date, we have served over 28 million lunch, 17 million breakfast, 247,000 snacks, and 146,000 milk. Our food distribution program on Indian reservation program has continued to provide household food distribution to our 11 tribal communities with no change in distribution date and time. In fact, the first night in March, my staff were distributing food until 9 p.m. And this next day, we send another truck of food to make sure that we are covering all the population. And usually, normally for a month is 420 individuals. For March and April, we had over 570 individuals served to our food distribution and Indian reservation. Our food safety staff continued conducting inspection testing for our dairy farm, and they have done some inspection. I'm not going to go through them. I have listed all of them. We have done a store check for illegal products, and we tested water, dairy samples, and also marijuana samples. Our audit service continued to survey and check the check the stores, and they have done 629 investigation. But at this point, all the activities are suspended, and there is no field work at this point. But they have completed, because the audits don't need to be on the field, so they have completed all the audit reviews for less than 750,000 and more than 750,000. And the COVID-19 impact, actually, we know that has significant impact on meal served to schools through our both our child care, child and adult care food programs, summer food program, and national school lunch program. Due to COVID, the school districts are operating only 20% of their normal time. That means they're not getting reimbursed, and they're not having they're going to be short in revenue. So we are waiting. There is CARE Act money coming down. We are waiting on the guidance to see if that can help them. But they're at the 20% capacity at this point. For our child care and food program, unfortunately, we got we got a waiver because they couldn't be in the centers and do the congregate feeding for our senior population. So we got a waiver and they can deliver food to our senior, and that has been a great accomplishment. However, meal delivery for seniors and homework continue to be a challenge for food bank. Our emergency food assistance program continues to provide household food to families and individuals through 2 food banks, and food distribution are being conducted also to drive-through to maximize social distancing and reduce physical contact. And we have waived signature for requirement during food distribution. Our emergency food program has received additional $3.5 million of food entitlement and $220,000 administrative fund. Excuse me. And this additional food will begin to come mid-June and July. I have put some numbers for our 2 food bank has reported increased need in March and April. Between March 23rd and 30th, food bank distributed over 2 million pound of TFAP food to 40,000 households. And between April 13 and 20, it was 9,000 individuals and through food bank and 51,000 3 square. In total, we estimate that 2.8 million pounds of food have been distributed through TFAP since March 20th. And for our food safety, they requested some exemptions from FDA not to go to the interstate, the National Conference on Interstate Milk, which is a regulatory, they go, this is a routine conference that they go, and also all the routine tests has been suspended and only emergency tests and activities are being conducted by our food safety department team. This is it for me. Any questions?
Thank you, Homa. It's having a difficulty unmuting myself. Thank you very much. And I do want to thank you and your staff. I can't even imagine how you guys are responding to this, going from the levels that you have been doing to where you are now. It's thoroughly impressive that you can gear up for that. I do see that we have a question from Dr. Spratling. Go ahead, Boyd.
I have to congratulate you on your cooperation with private industry to distribute milk in that situation, an unfortunate situation because of all the circumstances that milk was being dumped. And to put forward that sort of a program, I think is real admirable of both the private industry and your office. Because of the shutdown in schools, was there actually, I just see you distribute still a lot of food, but was anything left over or was not able to go between different programs to be used as you'd like to?
Actually, we were able to cover every single schools, and I don't think there is any food left over. It's just they don't have as many population to distribute as they have during the school time, because it's a cafeteria and people who are also not free and reduced lunch, they come and pay. So there is a low revenue, but we have been able to distribute food, and there is, at this point, I'm not aware of any leftover food.
Okay. Marlon, I'm not sure if you're waving at the camera that you want to speak. No, just adjusting. All right. Do we have any other questions from the board?
Paul, I do see, I think it's Tim who still had his hand raised when he called in, but if you hit *9 again, if you don't have any questions, that'll take your hand down.
I had a question for Director Ott earlier, but that's all right. I'll wait till later.
Okay.
I would say if you want to go ahead and ask it now, Jennifer, are you okay with that? Go ahead and ask your question.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, yeah, I was asking a question on the letter, the 4546, but I see Doug's going to address it here in a little bit, so I'll wait till then.
Okay, thank you. The only question I had for you, Homer, actually is
Dave's hands raised too, Mr. Kuhn. I don't know if you have a question or not.
I do not.
Go ahead, Dave.
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. So actually, I just wanted to ask Homa, under the deal where the school programs are basically 20% of normal, is there anything that the department can do to assist them in making the case that it needs to be reinstated, or what moves forward there? How does that work?
Well, unfortunately, because the schools are closed, the participation is low, as I said, because people who come to school and then go to cafeteria and even they're not part of free and reduced, that's where the districts make money from the reimbursement that we provide for them and also the money that is paid through paid lunches. This is how the revenues comes. At this point, we are not. On our part, we cannot do anything because the school is closed, but there is funds that came down through USDA, and we are trying to work with USDA to see if we can use those funds in a different way to reimburse school districts and provide some revenue for them. So far, we haven't heard anything.
Okay. And what you're saying is you think that it would actually come under that CARES Act?
We already got the money, but we got $55 million, but they are asking that to be done for the reimbursement. But we think we are asking for other allowable costs for this, because the reimbursement is the food distribution is low, and we do have money through the money that we had through USDA before. So the reimbursement of meal is not an issue. Paying for staff, paying for some of the revenues that the school districts have lost, that is something that is going to help the school districts, especially in fall, because we don't know we are working on the plan with the Department of Education for fall. They may need more money, so that $55 million we are hoping to be used in different way, just for instead of just meal reimbursement.
Okay.
So we are with USDA.
Okay, thank you, Director Ott.
This is Jennifer Ott for the record. I just wanted to just mention that we have just a comment on Homa's explanation is that, one of the challenges that we've had with some of the federal programs or even the congressional actions is that, these are passed as a one size fits all. And then, our job has been to take that direction and to take that funding and work with our regional offices or find ways to use that for fits the needs in our state. And so we have these great opportunities and things are moving so incredibly fast. And part of what, in response to that as well is that, that becomes a challenge, is that there's funding, there's opportunity. We just have to make the puzzle pieces fit sometimes. And that's where a lot of the work from us comes in.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. One more ask. Any further questions for Homa? Then we'll move on to item 6, animal industry.
And Chairman Anderson, I will top up. I will share Doug's report and scroll along as he goes, just so everybody can see it in case they don't have it in front of them.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Doug, go ahead. Doug?
Hold on, Doug. There you go. I unmuted you, so you're good to go.
Good morning, Doug. Still not hearing anything. Samantha?
I have him unmuted. Are your speakers working, Doug? Or your mic? I still got nothing. Nope.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yay, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I had my monitors hooked up as well. I guess that wasn't going to work. So
thank you, Doug.
I'll start from the beginning then. So for the record, Doug Harris, Animal Industry Division Administrator. To start with our pending matters of significance, one thing we're very, very happy to report is the fact that we have filled our state veterinarian position. Dr. Amy Mitchell started approximately 3 weeks ago. She's getting settled and actually has hit the ground running. So everything's we have a lot going on this time of year. So she's very busy. She's even assisting North Las Vegas and our enforcement staff during our meeting here with animal abuse and neglect investigation in the Pahrump area. So she's away doing that right now, but we're happy to have her on board as a full-time state veterinarian and look forward to working with her and progressing as we move along. We're also excited. I guess we have a lot of positives at the beginning here. So we've also filled our agricultural enforcement officer 3 position. Ian Knight's the supervisor now for our ag enforcement officers. He's based out of Sparks. And then we also have filled the ELCO position with an agricultural enforcement officer, Dalton Smith. He'll be attending the academy later this year, starts in July. We do have one other prospective candidate for the Ely enforcement officer position, and we're still in the background process on that. So more to come as we go there. And then in reference to the letter of intent that we were issued for the livestock inspection account, that was issued because of the financial instability of budget account 4546 of livestock inspection. As Director Ott said, we all put a lot of time into this. Everybody spent many hours working on this, and I'm pretty excited because we've come a long ways here, a lot farther than we were when I started here three years ago or so. So I think it's pretty exciting that we can actually move forward with this. The program, just kind of an oversight of it, it has a component for an online dispatching system for the brand inspectors. It has also another component for a electronic brand inspection program for the sale yards, public livestock auctions, so we can move away from all just paper generated and have some tracking. As Director Ott said, it was submitted on Monday, and so we're happy to have gotten that far. We've also held some meetings with industry members as well, and got their input on it more, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come, and a work in progress, I'm sure, but we made a big milestone here. Moving on to our partnership activities, as Director Ott said, Mark Ono is now the State Director for Wildlife Services. We've had a couple meetings with him already, and we've exchanged many emails. So we look forward to working with him and finalizing our MOU with Wildlife Services and progressing that program as well with Mr. Ono. With USDA APHIS, that's who we work directly with, and we also receive grant funds that help assist in as far as animal disease traceability for our veterinary medical services program. We actually had not completed an ADT roadmap since 2015. Those are due every 3 years. So staff all worked on that, and we were able to submit a new ADT roadmap in April. So we're glad we have that. And then we had also applied for the next federal fiscal year's funding for an ADT and an umbrella grant, which we were successful in being awarded. So a few extra funds to keep progressing that forward. Wild Horse Connection, the advocate group that we have the non-exclusive cooperative agreement with for management of the Virginia range feral and stray horses. I won't go through all the statistics here, but they're all in the board report. And unless anybody has any questions, they've been busy, and especially this time of the year in the spring, it seems like they've had a lot of calls that they've worked on and doing well. With American Wild Horse Campaign, we actually signed a second-year non-exclusive cooperative agreement with them, and I've also provided their updated numbers as far as for the fiscal year of how many horses have been darted with fertility control. Moving on to our commercial feed program, we currently have 102 registered accounts in that, and then with livestock enforcement, I think these numbers will increase as it was. Most of this is with 2 enforcement officers, but since Ian has started, he's been busy, so we've updated some of the tracking that we do with them as far as activity and what they've been doing. Still a lot of phone calls and a lot of meetings in that sense, and especially with the COVID-related activities. Everyone's been working, but been working from home a lot unless they're required to respond out into the field. Livestock identification, we've inspected approximately or performs over 63,000 brand inspections for almost 400,000 animals in this fiscal year, which does include the public livestock auctions. The renewal notices for brand re-renewals was sent out last fall. We still have over 1,500 brands that haven't been re-renewed or re-recorded, I guess. So I know Shannon says that we still have them coming in slowly. There's some still trickling in. Along with that, then there were new brand registrations, transfers, and things such as that happen at this time during the renewal process if anybody wants to make changes. So those get carried out after the re-recordings are done. Let's see. Our livestock assessment filings for the 2020 year, those are scheduled to go out. They were supposed to go out the end of May. I know we had it sent to state printing, so if those of you who received those haven't seen them yet, they'll be out very quickly. We also have staff that are following up on some delinquent accounts that we have dating back to even 18. So between working on that, we're hopeful to collect the delinquent accounts plus the new ones. Livestock movement permits, we've sent out 218 applications, which totals almost 2,500 permits. So out of those 218 applications, we have 242 agricultural licenses have been issued through the division. The Sparks office staff have answered or responded in excess of 350 phone calls or emails regarding the Virginia range feral and stray horses. For predatory animal and rodent control, we have the statistics here as well for them as far as what the staff have provided. Primary predatory animals addressed during the last quarter were 43% ravens, 43% coyotes, and then 45% ravens. Last 12% was European starlings primarily, and then there were some mountain lions. They provided outreach to 771 individuals, and there was 30 samples collected off of animals for testing, for follow-up testing. For our veterinary medical services, animal disease laboratories performed over 18,000 procedures, totaling in excess of 26,000 tests during this fiscal year. And along with that, we've also submitted a reclassification request for the ecobiologist position. We're requesting to reclassify that position to a microbiologist, and that will aid us in the opening of the Elko laboratory, and then we would have one full-time microbiologist in that location at that time. And then I'll move on to industry impact. I have to start off and just saying I'm pretty proud of our department and my division as a whole, because even though this has been an interesting time, animal industry division, we've pretty much moved forward. Our, the things that we oversee don't have the ability to stop as far as livestock inspections or the testing for animal diseases. And the staff's been great and working in that and keeping things moving forward. And then those of us that were able to work remotely did that, and we've been pursuing or keeping things moving. So that's been pretty great. The park staff, they all kept working. They have the ability to be social distance while they're out in the field. So that was a benefit that we could keep them out there and keep them working as well. The daily business our daily business that goes on as far as billing and everything like that. We've been able to keep up with all of that just because of remote working. We have staff that have everything set up to where they can be at home and still completing all the processes they need to get everything out and done, so we don't fall behind. There's negatives that have come along with this as well. So as far as the CDC's epidemiology and laboratory capacity, the grant that we received there, funding's been redirected. So I believe we're going to see some really limited funding in that area because of that. We also had one of our pieces of equipment for the laboratory that was scheduled to go to Elko. We've actually had to remove from purchasing because of fiscal reasons at this time. And then along with some other stuff, USDA has notified us as far as the equine infectious anemia courses that they provide, which would be our state veterinarian would participate in those, as well as once we have the microbiologist position in Elko in place, they would also participate. But at this time, it seems like USDA is actually canceling those trainings and won't be having any for the next year. So we'll just kind of be on standby as far as when they start those up again, and that we can enroll some of our staff. ADL's been working on throughout this process still as far as pooling studies for trick fetus, and staff are still reviewing the pricing forms, cost per test, and we're still kind of moving in that direction. And now that we have Dr. Mitchell on board as well, we'll have her input on this, so we can hopefully progress that. One big positive that I thought was really great is we actually loaned out pieces of our laboratory equipment that were all shipped down to Las Vegas to assist in COVID-19 testing for humans. So we had the equipment that we could spare at that time. It may have put us a little bit behind, but the importance of getting that out there and helping our state was paramount to that. So I think that's pretty great that we were actually to be a part in that and shipping our equipment down there, loaning it to them so they could continue with testing and increase their testing. One of the big issues that the lab has dealt with, though, throughout this entire pandemic has been the reagents and operating supplies for the laboratory. They've whether they've been back ordered or delayed, or the groups we work with or the companies we work with that supply them have been more focused on COVID-19, which we understand. But we were lucky to have Laura Morrow as our animal disease laboratory supervisor. She actually pulled some strings, and we even borrowed reagents from other laboratories when needed. And so we've continued all our testing. Everything is continued forward just as though we were operating before. It just took a little more time at some points. And I think with that, I've reached the end of my report at this time.
All right, thank you, Doug. And if I understood correctly, Mr. DeFrina, you wanted to ask a question during this time?
Yes, I was curious about what all went on with the 4546 deal on the brand inspection deal. I think you answered some of it, so I'll wait till later.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Spratling.
I just got a couple real short ones. First of all, on your roadmap for the animal disease transmissibility, will it become public, that roadmap, and will the board have a chance to comment on it?
For the record, Doug Ferris, yes, it is public. It's something we have to submit to USDA, and then they actually post it on their website.
Okay, so we won't be doing that through a regular board meeting. Is that correct? We won't be commenting on it.
No, I'm sorry. It was actually submitted to USDA. The staff put it together, and then we submitted it to USDA.
Okay.
If you have comments, though, I'm more than willing to take those, Dr. Spratling.
Okay, I appreciate that. And on your 350 calls that you received on the Virginia range horses, were those mostly complaints, or what was the nature of the majority of those calls?
That's mostly what we receive are whether they be complaints of the horses being in the urban areas near highways, nuisance horses, things like that. Some of them aren't as complaints as much as they're just reports that people see horses near the roadway or something like that. But I would say it's a combination of the two.
Okay, and then lastly, I see you're going through the process of verifying the pooling process for trichomoniasis in your laboratory. But currently, will the state veterinarian accept from verified labs, other laboratories, pooling, samples for pooling on trichomoniasis?
At this time, we don't have that ability or availability to do that. But it's something we're going to address, absolutely. And our goal is to start accepting those.
Because it's kind of two different things. I realize the lab has to go through their proper procedures to have a good, valuable, verified test. But in the meantime, there are other labs that are doing it on a routine basis in nearby states. And until our lab is up to the point in doing that, I think it's really important as we do more testing. I think it's an important fiscal point for the ranchers in the industry to have a pooling situation where they can actually diminish the cost per test, to be submitted to the state veterinarian.
Yep, I will agree with you, and that's actually one of the things we wanted to address with all of that. And I'll go back to the same thing. I mean, I know with previous state veterinarian, myself and Laura Morrow, we all discussed it. And so I think as Dr. Mitchell gets settled here, we can spring that on her as well and see if we can move forward with that.
I actually tested Dr. Thane on our own personal bulls at our ranch. I had them pooled from the Utah State and sent them to see if they would be accepted by the state veterinarian. And I never got a yes or no answer as to whether or not they were accepted. So.
You sent your samples to Utah, Dr. Spratling?
I did. They have a verified pooling program, and it decreased the cost by about 60% per bull. So it's I think it's important with some of these ranches have large numbers of bulls, and it's in one particular ranch, one of my clients, by sending them out and doing that, we saved about $3,000 for that ranch. So it's an important financial question that needs to be answered. Coming up, we'll be starting again testing those bulls, and after August 1st, we'll be doing the 2021 tests. So I think it's important that we get that settled. I really do.
Yep, I completely agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more call for any questions from Doug before we let him go.
Chairman Anderson, I see Mr. Kuhn has his hand raised. Did you have a question?
No, I don't. And Samantha, that might be at the beginning. I was trying to make sure that you knew I was there. I don't know if I've erased that or know how to do that.
Go ahead and press *9 on your phone and it'll go away.
Okay, I'll do that right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Doug, appreciate the update, and we'll go ahead and move on to item 7, administration, and Jerry with the board update. Good morning, Jerry.
Morning. I think for the most part, a lot of what I was going to cover has been covered in administrative updates, which is great. I will, you can see there's the document there. So if you have any questions on anything that I don't talk about, just let me know. But updates regarding the implementation of emergency feeding sites has been covered. Of course, our new vet, Dr. Mitchell. The communications team has continued to support divisions in their communication efforts and outreach to industry during this time. Our education information officer has been participating in the Nevada Economic Outlook meetings with various partners and providing reports to the director and to division administrators, and also has been busy with pulling economic data as requested from either on behalf of for media sources, but also other industry and partners as well. And our trade coordinator has, as you can imagine, his duties, which majority really require travel. And so he hasn't really been able to fill some of those duties toward, the end of this fiscal year. But he has been busy in other ways as far as responding to any industry inquiries and providing certificates of free sale and that type of thing, ways to support the industry. So any questions for me?
Before we go to questions, I just want to say I want to thank you and the communications team. I've been seeing a lot of positive press on you guys, and I think you guys are doing a great job, kind of like what Doug was talking about, from lab equipment to the food and nutrition side. You guys have done a good job to get the positive message out there, so I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the team has worked very closely with division administrators to support them in the efforts that they're doing, particularly as it relates to COVID-19, the pandemic, and also some folks, early on were volunteering, to help out in like the food warehouse and things like that when they needed extra support. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Thank you. So we'll open it up to questions from the board members. No questions for Jerry? All right. Thank you very much, Jerry. Have a great day. Sorry about that. Too many phone lines here. Okay, we'll move on to item 8, consumer equitability. Good morning, Cadence. Cadence, are you there?
Cadence, I can't hear you. It might be the same problem Doug had where he was connected to his monitors.
Still can't hear you, Cadence.
All right, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. My apologies. And you'll have to forgive me because I may have lost my video in this. So sorry about that. You still see me? Okay. I will go into my division board update. You have there the numbers that are various programs of work that we had completed. Those numbers are through May 9th. Admittedly, most of that work was completed prior to March 16th. At the time that the routine operational shutdown occurred, we were on pace in our metrology and petroleum technology programs to achieve our numbers as related to our performance measures for the fiscal year. Within the weights and measures program, we were a little bit off pace, largely because of vacancies in our weights and measures inspector positions. I am pleased to say that as of this week, we do have full staffing in our ELCO weights and measures program staff, including a seasonal to assist with livestock scale inspections. And we were also able to hire a seasonal for the Sparks weights and measure program to assist with livestock scale inspections. We do continue to have one vacancy in the Sparks weights and measure inspector team and 2 vacancies in the Las Vegas team. So we were a little bit off of our numbers there. I'll try not to repeat anything that Director Ott or others have mentioned, but just a summary for the board of what this division has been doing since the initial COVID direction was released. Many of the industries that our division serves were declared as essential businesses, including grocery stores, convenience stores, hardware stores, and certainly gas stations. We have worked together, and my kudos to the communications team as well, in translating some of our technical weights and measures information out to industry guidance, including industry guidance for our registered service agents and public waymasters. And we also joined with the Governor's Office of Energy to provide clarification that all elements of the fuel supply chain, not just gas stations, are considered to be essential services. So that's pipeline operators, distribution terminals, tanker trucks, and fuel wholesalers, so that there was no question that those members of the industry should be out and working as essential businesses. We did suspend most of our routine operations as of March 16th. We did continue to perform field activities as necessary to investigate consumer complaints and inspections for essential commerce. As of the date of the report, we had conducted 3 complaint investigations. We've conducted 2 additional ones since that time. We did identify a retail fuel location that had some contaminated fuel, and were able to get that resolved quickly. And that station is back in full compliance at this point. And as of right now, we do not have any open complaints that we are working on. We continue to monitor and respond to telephone, email, mail correspondence from industry and the public. And as of this week, actually have been transitioning as the seasons change, essential commerce changes. And so as of this week, we have initiated livestock scale inspections. We're having a few struggles with our equipment, but do anticipate that we will be full-fledged into that program as of next week. And additionally, we've been performing scale inspections at farmers markets as they've been opening. We did a couple of days of curbside scale inspections at NDA's offices across the state, and we'll actually be out physically at farmers markets. That started yesterday. We have several sites that will be at physically on Saturday morning to do scale inspections, and then some additional inspections for new markets that will be opening in the next week. We are also, as some of the other divisions, as we come to the close of the fiscal year, working on trying to bring delinquent accounts into compliance and providing notices to businesses that have not paid their registration fees for this license, which closes in just a few weeks. So our inspectors have been working on that, and we'll be doing some limited field inspections in the coming weeks to follow up on any kind of enforcement notices that we had delivered prior to the initial shutdown. We do anticipate that when we return to more routine field inspection activities, we will limit those to inspection types that can be performed under the social distancing guidelines, and likely indoor retail device inspections will continue to be suspended, with exception of those cases where it would be in response to a consumer complaint. But as I think most of the board knows, we do have a number of devices that are out in outdoor locations, very isolated, that we can accomplish that and keep those devices checked and inspected while maintaining social distancing and health and safety of both our inspectors and the public. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I think that wraps up my update report, and I'd be pleased to take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Cadence. Board members, any questions for Cadence? All right, I guess we'll move on. Cadence, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I guess I don't want to let you go since you have the next item too. So we'll move on to 8B. This is an action item. So we're going to request approval from the board to submit language to permanently amend Nevada Administrative Code, Chapter 590, under the motor vehicle fuel, petroleum products, and antifreeze. So Cadence, this is all yours as well. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a follow-up item from an action item that we brought to you at your last board meeting. As Director Ott has shared with the board, that as part of our strategic plan, all of the department's divisions have been engaged in reviewing both our statutes and our regulations for areas that we need to modify, update, and perhaps improve upon our regulations. The language that's before you today is the language that we drafted following your approval and direction to initiate these changes to Nevada Administrative Code. As you may recall from my presentation last time, within Chapter 590, authority is granted to both the board and the state sealer of consumer equitability, which is our department director. So the portions that are in front of you is the language that is within the authority of the board. And the purpose of these changes is to update the prices to purchase certain ASTM international specifications, to update the titles of these publications and specifications, to update department addresses where the specifications are available, to add requirements for diesel fuel to be advertised and sold as premium diesel. This is a product that is relatively new to market, and defining those requirements and how that product is to be advertised is important for consumers to be aware of what they're purchasing. To add requirements for descriptive terms of gasoline and gasoline oxygenate blends. As that technology has changed, we've needed to update our terms. And then creating a new section identifying reference specification documents for motor oil. Again, these are the items that are within the board's approval. There is a parallel item that will also be moving forward for those items that are under the state sealer's authority. If the board indeed grants approval for us to submit this to the Legislative Counsel Bureau, we will do so in short order, straight away, with the hope to get returned language from them this month and be able, hopefully, to go out to the public input and workshop process later this summer with the goal of adopting these at your September board meeting so that they can be submitted for approval by the Legislative Commission before the end of the calendar year. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want me to read through the proposed language. It's there. I believe that the board members received it. I'm happy to do that, but I also don't want to waste your time if everybody's already had a chance to review it and just has a comment or question.
Okay, thank you, Cadence. I don't think you need to read through it. Hopefully everyone reviewed their packet before we got here. If you have any specific questions or if you're concerned about something, we could go ahead and ask Cadence now, but I do want to remind everyone that as she indicated, the process is that this will go to LCB where they're gonna formalize it, change anything that they see fit. And then it'll be going before board and, for workshop and hearing. So both industry as well as board members can be involved in that process and make their comments and concerns known at that time. I do want to say from industry, thank you for these cleanups. It is kind of funny. You laugh on some of these when you look through about how old the language was on it and the methods and things that were in here that aren't even applicable anymore. So thank you for you and your team working on this and getting it updated. I don't have any questions, board members. Yes, Dr. Spratling.
Okay, maybe I'm too curious. I'm going to ask one very general and possibly unfair question, please. But you know, just experience that we've had, you know, where in regards in counties, in regards to their rules on building permits and that sort of thing, they often just carte blanche accept international rules that come down as opposed to looking through them. And there's a lot of unintended consequences to that. Sometimes when you get something too broad into, you know, these specific counties have specific needs. Do you feel that, you know, by accepting just, you know, going through, perhaps you've already filtered through that, seen what we need and what we don't need in Nevada. Is there any downside to any of this stuff? Or there could be unintended consequences to the industry or to the consumer by accepting any of these proposed regulation changes that have been sent down from the ASTM?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Spratling. For the record, Cadence Matievich, Division Administrator for Division of Consumer Equitability. No, in the cases of the regulations that are before you here, and similarly those that will be brought forth under the authority of the State Sealer of Consumer Equitability, these particular specifications, I do not believe are those where elements of the specifications are tied to things like temperature and altitude that would be geographically specific. And so in these cases, I don't believe that is the case. I will say we do have in our regulations, we don't adopt by reference the uniform standards that are in the NIST laws about fuel quality for that very reason. And there are places in our regulations where we have included language that says, notwithstanding what it says in the ASTM table, we do this in our state. And we will, as subject matter advisors to this board, continue to look at that. Dr. Strajewski, our Chief Petroleum Chemist, is on the call. So I guess I would ask Sam if we can unmute Bill to see if he wants to confirm that I haven't misspoken here. Certainly, he's the chemist and the expert on it, but at this point, I believe our recommendation on this is sound and that adopting these is in the best interest of our statewide interests.
He's unmuted if he wants to say anything.
Bill?
Am I unmuted now?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Good morning. Bill Strajewski, Senior Petroleum Chemist with Consumer Equitability Division. For the record, I would concur with Cadence's comments on these changes. In this case, you know, I think the ones of most importance that Dr. Spratling was curious about, the definition for premium diesel. This would just be, again, in the context of protecting the consumer, and the components of that definition are independent of location or availability or conditions, et cetera. Likewise, codifying some terms for fuel grades. There's been some variation throughout the state, and this is just a matter of, you know, these are just adjectives. Are we calling 91 octane premium or super or et cetera? And are those terms sort of drifting down into other grades like mid-grade, which should not be called super or premium? And it's just, again, clarifying it and, making it more indicative for the consumer.
Thank you, Bill. And from the industry side of it, it is one thing that whether it's current staff with the department or our predecessors on the board and the Department of Agriculture, they did a really good job of setting this up, Boyd, so that we as a state have an authority to, as a board, to say yay or nay on some of these decisions. But yeah, I understand your concern. I appreciate it. And fortunately for us, things have been set up for us so that we can make these changes unless it goes through the legislature. Within the administrative code, we have the right to say, yes, we want to adopt this, or no, we don't. So thank you.
This is Boyd again. I appreciate Bill and Cadence, and they're doing the due diligence not to accept some of these federal or international guidelines just by reference. And I'm glad that that's being cherry picked for what's best for Nevada. Thank you.
Cadence, did I misstate the situation or?
Not at all. I just, if I might, for the record, Cadence Matievich, I just wanted to add that certainly as we work through the administrative rulemaking process and go out to workshop and solicit public input on these regulations, we will of course contact retailers, wholesalers across the state and be sure that we're getting that feedback. And if we've missed something, the beauty of the process is that we have lots of opportunity for input from industry and the public, and so that's the process that we'll be going through over the course of the next few months. And if we need to, if we've missed something and we need to modify it, we will certainly do that and bring it back to you.
All right, thank you, Cadence. I'll go one more time. Board members, any questions? Okay, and actually on the process of this, I believe we probably want to open it up for questions from the public, which we normally do on some of our action items. So what I would ask is if you're on the phone or you'd like to ask a question before we bring this to a vote, is there anyone on the line that would like to ask a question at this, or I'm sorry, not ask us a question, but make a comment on this action item? Thank you.
I don't see anything on my end, Chairman.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And so what we'll do is go ahead and bring it back to the board. Board members, it looks like Woody, I'm not sure if you were waving. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and stating your motion, please.
Woody Worthington for the record. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve submitting language to permanently amend Nevada Administration Code, Chapter 590, Motor Vehicle Fuel, Petroleum Products, and Antifreeze to the Legislative Council for examination in accordance with the NRS 233B.063.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
And I'm sorry, if you could state your name.
Okay, Jim Snyder.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Worthington, second by Mr. Snyder. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 9, plant industry. Ashley, good morning.
Good morning. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good morning. For the record, Ashley Jepson, Plant Industry Division Administrator. Samantha, if it's okay, if you're going to pull it up, do you mind the industry impact? I think that's where I'm going to start. Perfect. Thank you so much. I wanted to just provide a little bit more in depth as to what our division's been doing in response to COVID-19. Building upon what Director Ott and Deputy Director Jerry was discussing, we have been trying to do anything specific to activities that limit public contact. So anything where we can adequately do social distancing, we have been. Specific activities are listed in the report. Some of the challenges that we've directly experienced is, of course, the limit with overnight travel. That's impacted some of our survey work, some of our inspection services, wanting to make sure that we're, of course, protecting our staff. And we're taking that into account each day as the phases change, as some of the standards within the industry change. And hopefully as the season progresses, we'll be able to overcome this a little bit more, but that's definitely kind of delayed some of our survey work. We are trying to work with a lot of our regional offices. We work closely with county groups, other state offices. So if they're in a region that we may have difficulties in reaching, if it's going and setting a trap or collecting the information or confirming whether there's noxious weed presence, we've been leveraging those relationships, and we're going to keep doing that. I think we're all going to be working pretty closely together on some of those things. One of the significant ongoing issues we've had is folks that want to come in and do their pest control operator testing. With state offices being closed and the risk that that posed to the public, we have not been proctoring those exams, but our staff have been working diligently in putting together procedures for when state offices open, whether they'll be adequate and how we can do it on a limited basis to work best to protect our staff and, of course, members of the public. So we're working with Director Ott on that, and hopefully we can be able to address some of those in the future. For licensees that need to proceed with their continuing education credits in order to remain up to date, we've found a lot of online courses that we've vetted and posted to our pages for acceptable trainings. So that's allowed us to address that. And just with the shutdown, with everything that's happened, we have put 90-day extensions on licenses that have expired. So we've been trying to work with our industry as best as possible throughout this. Some of the guidance documents we've been working with the communications team on to make sure that our operations are still able to continue, have been specific to our pest control operators. We did limit pest control activities to exterior unless there was a public health or public safety or structural concern to the interior of a building. But now with the phases opening up, we're changing our guidance documents to reflect potential indoor applications with hopefully, appropriate procedures in place in terms of social distancing, sanitation, and so forth. So we're working to get those things updated with our with the phases. Some other challenges we experienced were involving our farmers markets. We wanted to make sure they are not operating as events, that they're operating as a channel for folks to go and get clearly food supplies and sanitation materials and those essential items. So throughout this process, we've been, providing guidance to our market managers and working with other government agencies to make sure that we're supporting access to local foods. And again, working through updating that throughout the phases. Let's see. Those are the big ones involving COVID. To kind of expand outside of some of our COVID work, we have been working on a presentation involving our state hemp plan, which is required for USDA in order for states to have primary regulatory oversight. We have prepared a recorded presentation and then have a platform for questions to be received, and that should be posted here pretty quickly. It'll discuss what's required by USDA of the state plan and what our current authority is that reflects that will allow us to hopefully proceed with a program based on their approval. So we're trying to get kicking on that pretty quick because those plans need to be approved by USDA by October 31st. So we figure it will be a working document as we work with USDA, and we want to make sure we're giving all that information out to our industry. We've discussed much of it through other meetings, but trying to streamline some of that. Involving our pesticide program, as mentioned, we've had some concerns involving not proctoring. So hopefully we're able to get those procedures in place and come up with some solutions to that. Many of you have probably heard we did encounter some challenges in doing our cricket our Mormon cricket treatments. Unfortunately, right when we were about ready to do some aerial treatment, there was the environmental assessment that was submitted. There were about 30 pages of public comment that were received that had to be gone through that had never happened in the past for these same materials. So that delayed treatment of Mormon crickets during the earlier stages and the products that we wanted to use to tackle that. Unfortunately, because the EA was not approved, we could not take action. However, it has since been approved to allow us to use baiting, which is the stage that the crickets are at now. So we will be doing treatment, and we're working with USDA to get cracking on that. All right, and now I'm going to jump up to the beginning of the report, Samantha. Sorry for the back and forth. To highlight some of our partnerships, I know that's in the report, but we are excited about one of the projects that was submitted through the specialty crop grant. Just a little background, that grant is geared at, each state has a certain amount of dollars that are allocated, and they're geared at projects that enhance research, education, promotion of specialty crops, which are typically fruits, vegetables, floriculture, and so forth. So these projects are submitted to the Department of Ag. They go through a competitive process, and the top scoring projects are selected. And one of those involved the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, a collaborative project with them, a project that's been launched through Oregon and Washington, involving a women's farm food accelerator. This is really aimed at providing mentoring to women starting specialty crop agricultural businesses. So, market assessment, promotional business structure. So we'll be tag teaming with other states that have already launched this program to provide that here as well. And some of the other projects that were funded through that involved a garlic festival event, a beekeeper event, to try to provide another avenue for educational resources to help support those industries, and also an avenue for sale. Also, one of those that's been moving through is a mobile farmers market, which I think is fairly timely, looking at how we can improve our access of some of our regional foods, even from our smaller growers. So we're excited to see that take place, in addition to a project that's looking at a mobile processing feasibility study. Again, that's on a much smaller scale for small growers that might be able to share some of the equipment to try to overcome some of the processing challenges that we have within our state. So those are the projects that we'll be submitting. In terms of, to highlight a little bit more on our partnerships, we're still working with our community weed management associations and tribal groups to try to really bring more collaboration on some of our noxious weeds issues. We're making some traction involving Washoe Story CWMA and Pershing County CWMAs. So we're hopeful that as we continue to work with those groups will be doing more on the ground treatment, monitoring, and helping to tackle that effort collectively. As part of a current work program we have submitted, specific to our program updates within our crops division, it involves our hemp program. We do not have a dedicated chemist to our hemp program. We've been using a chemist that's been that's really allocated to our pest control program, doing residue analyses and groundwater monitoring. So one of the things that we're trying to get is a dedicated chemist, due to the number of samples that we're taking in for hemp that needs to take place to demonstrate our compliance. With that, we're also trying to get an agriculturist in our Las Vegas office specifically. That's where a lot of the production is taking place. So having somebody dedicated and that can get out there quickly is definitely a priority. So we're working, and hopefully we'll be able to get those positions through a work program, and it's also in our budget enhancement request for the next budget cycle. Export, it's been a busy year for allium export. You guys, I'm sure saw the growth that we experienced in FY20, very significant. Our staff really stepped up to the plate and tried to address the increase in requests that we received, and I think they did a fantastic job. But it shows that based on a 37.6 growth in inspection requests, and then a 48% increase in volume exported of onions. Now, to give a little background, this is specific to countries that are requiring these inspections before they can be exported. Canada tends to be the primary one, but in order to allow for export and to meet those buyers' requirements, these inspections have to take place and they have to align with USDA criteria. So they're fairly intensive inspections, and our inspectors are going through very large volumes of product. But based on this growth, as part of our budget enhancement, we will be asking for additional positions to support that as well. We've heard that there's going to be ongoing growth based on industry increased the construction of another warehouse to house that, and then we're seeing an increase in requests for our allium quarantine as well. So that's reflecting that it's continuing onward in growth. As part within our pesticide program, our staff have been spending some time surveying some of our industry on whether labeling of containers would be particularly challenging, just to ensure that this is part of our 154-17, a regulation change that we've been working on for a couple years now. But based on some feedback, we're trying to make sure that we're covering all our bases and we're hearing from industry on potential concerns. Out of 15 interviews that we've done so far, only one has opposed this additional requirement. Most of them are actually already doing it. So that's kind of the response that we're receiving, and we're going to continue to try to move forward with those regulations. As we get it scheduled with our legislative commission, we will be sure to inform board members. For our chemistry program, our alfalfa growers have had some pretty significant challenges with aphids this year, and the products currently approved for that have not been sufficient. So a Section 18 emergency exemption request was filed to utilize Safina. This is still under review with EPA. They had some follow-up requests from the applicants, so we're working on that. We're kind of unfortunately past the phase of it being particularly helpful this year, but at least it'll get us ahead of the game for next year. So we'll continue to work through this request, and hopefully we'll be able to get it squared away here quickly. I think that is just about, everything on my, a couple more things. We do have, as part of our staff priorities right now, for USDA, the hemp program, states that intend to have primary regulatory oversight over the hemp program, labs that will be providing services need to be ISO accredited, which provides certainties involving precision, consistency within the lab. So our lab is working to go through this process to get their SOPs in alignment, and at least start that process with hemp. The goal is for all of our testing procedures to align with that ISO accreditation in the future, but we're starting with hemp primarily because it's going to be required. Something kind of exciting is our plant pathology lab has been designated as a Nevada State hub lab, basically meaning that it's allowing us to provide diagnostic services on a regional and a national basis. So we will be working more with the National Plant Detection Network in providing the service, and it just shows the great work that our lab's doing. So a great kudos to them. And it does, being classified under that does provide more funding to support those activities as well. I think those are my primary updates at this point. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Ashley. Board members, any questions for Ashley before we move on?
I have none of that.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashley. Have a great day. And we're moving on to 10, NDA and COVID-19. Jennifer, back at you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Jennifer Ott. For the record, I don't have a presentation for this section, for this agenda item. I just wanted to have this agenda item available in case there were any board members that had specific questions. I know it's a big topic right now, and so just in respect of our open meeting laws, and so that we didn't go down a rabbit hole during other conversations, or if there was something in the Division Administrator Board reports that needed to be discussed as far as relating to the department in COVID-19. I wanted to take the opportunity to have that on the agenda. So if there's none, it'll go quick. But otherwise, I'll just wait for any questions or comments.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll go ahead and open it up to the board, but I do want to say that I've heard of cases throughout the state, not necessarily directed to NDA, but where some people are furious that you're out possibly spreading the virus by doing your job, but then other people that are furious that you're not out doing your job. So you guys are basically, in my opinion, on a high wire trying to do both. So thank you for what you guys have been doing, because it's not a fun time, and trying to balance that is a difficult task. So board, any questions for Jennifer?
And remember, if you're over the phone, you can press *9 and that'll alert me to get you.
Wow, this was a quick agenda item here. In fact, it looks like a quick board meeting all in all. Okay, we'll go ahead and close this item then. So we'll move on to item 11, public comment. We'll open it up one more time to the public. If you would please follow Samantha's directions if you choose to ask or speak to the board.
Again, if you are attending by phone, if you press *9, that will raise your hand so I can unmute you. If you're attending by the computer, if you hover over the little person towards the bottom of your screen and show your participants, and then hover over your name, you can raise your hand there, and that'll alert me to unmute you as well. If you want to see what that panel looks like, I can show you here. So down here, little person, and then come over and raise your hand.
Thank you, Samantha.
And I have nothing.
No questions. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment. And we're on to item 12, adjournment. Thank you all for joining us. I know this isn't the most fun way of doing it, but the good news is hopefully you didn't have to travel far to do this. Thank you very much, and we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.